AI or people? 40% of people could lose their jobs due to artificial intelligence if there isn't a sufficient plan in place. As of right now, there's one plan called the American Artificial Intelligence Initiative created by the Trump administration. So, one could say that artificial intelligence and its effects on unemployment will be mitigated correctly. However, after researching a bit more, it's clear that this plan doesn't have everything needed to properly and safely adopt AI into the economy. It's not ethical, and it doesn't have proper funding yet. To fix this, a diversity law that is enforced by a tax similar to a VAT is needed. To address this problem, we can start by looking at some examples in the military, to finding what the best solution is and comparing the good and the bad, as well as what other countries are doing. First, it is widely known that AI replaces humans' jobs due to the precision, speed, and quality at which it works. AI is very helpful in situations where speed, precision, and quality are key, such as production lines in factories, or moving to healthcare where cancer detection and microsurgeries are now possible. This is what AI should be used for, but the US is planning on automating anything they want, which is unethical. As described by Mike Verbruggen, a doctoral researcher who specializes in military technologies for the International Security Cluster, the military is planning on relying on AI for future combat and other missions. For example, drones that can master air defense with deadly speed and precision. It should be noted that some of the people being replaced would merely be moved to another position for the time being, such as drone monitor with the drone example. Although even with the people monitoring, there is not a direct correlation between the weapons being used and the human. The drone would have to be involved. If the drone were to fail, then the nation's security is threatened. Another researcher named Vincent Blunin, who works for CPRI, a company specialized in military expenditures and armed conflict data, states that the military is still too worried about letting AI control such powerful weapons, especially if they are nuclear. Nonetheless, there are significant risks associated with the use of UAVs and UUVs, as it would reduce the possibility of maintaining direct human control over nuclear weapon use. Furthermore, to prevent unethical use of AI in the workforce, and to make sure that there is a healthy AI-human relationship, there must be some sort of diversity law, or affirmative action. For instance, a law that would regulate the use of AI, so not only is the AI being used for the job that should be replaced, but there's a proper amount of human workers as there is to AI workers. According to Robert Fullenwider, a senior research scholar with years of expertise on public policy at the Institute of Philosophy and Public Policy, affirmative action is the way discrimination is dealt with in the workforce. Affirmative action means positive steps taken to increase the representation of women and minorities in areas of employment, education, and culture from which they have been historically excluded. When those steps involve preferential selection on the basis of race, gender, or ethnicity, affirmative action creates intense controversy. Of course, this isn't directly related to AI and its effects on unemployment. However, the concept from what that is needed. Companies are not going to want to keep human workers if they can replace them with AI, so to stop that, and to make sure that the diversity law is enforced, there would also need to be a VAT tax. This tax would be applied to the company the moment they choose to use AI. This way it makes companies think about the decision more. VAT is short for value added tax and is a tax added to a company's goods and services. The reason for this type of tax is to better the economy. If a product costs $100 and there's a VAT tax of 15%, then the total cost of the item would be $115. The tax dollars can be used to go back into society for fixing things like roads, schools, or it can be given back to the citizens over 18 as a monthly payment to help them with rent, or whatever they want to use it for. It's been established that a diversity law enforced by a tax similar to a VAT is needed to regulate the use of AI, so we can safely adopt it into our economy. But, on the contrary, there are some limitations to the solution that are worthwhile to look at. To start with, the solution involves a law being passed, which makes the vote at risk of being influenced by lobbyists. Lobbying is the act of trying to make the outcome of the vote different by lawful means. This usually involves an organization paying people to form bonds between lawmakers. The next remaining limitation is that there are many benefits to AI, which could make people unwilling to implement the new law and tax. Namely, the way AI can eliminate human error and become smarter over time, or the facial recognition and digital content analysis equipped with AI that can make businesses more secure. These advantages are definitely an influence in terms of if people are really willing to vote for a law that not only limits their use of AI, but also increases their products' prices. Eric Toder and Nuns Jim, two leading experts on the corporate tax and institute executives at the Urban Brookings Tax Policy Center, aver that VAT taxes can increase the consumer prices. The wedge between consumer and producer prices would appear immediately upon introduction of the VAT producer's sales. Proceeds would now have to be split between VAT payments and compensation of factors or production, labor and capital, so the amount available for compensation of factors would decline immediately and permanently. When the VAT tax is added to a company, their consumer prices would go up, making less people willing to pay for their products. This in turn would detriment the companies. Now at first, this wouldn't affect the people too much, but as anticipated, if too many companies started to create an unhealthy AI workforce, then the economy would see an increase in inflation. The solution has actually been looked at by other countries. Sweden wants to do it, and according to Eric Bratberg, an expert on European politics who works at Carnegie Endowment for Peace in Washington, he explains that Sweden is making sure they develop principles for sustainable, ethical, and safe AI use. Sweden understands that in order to be a leader in AI research and development, they need to set boundaries because it needs to be implemented slowly, so that way they won't have skyrocketed unemployment rates, which could damage the economy. Evidently, there needs to be a law to protect workers from unethical use of AI. Not only that, but there also needs to be a law enforced by a tax similar to a VAT tax. This solution will help slow the implementation of AI, which in turn will allow everyone to anticipate the effects it will have on unemployment. Naturally, there will be some limitations to this, but it's ultimately the safest way to adopt AI without taking away millions of jobs. The US needs a plan that is properly funded and involves ethical AI, because right now, the plan we will have will end up wiping out all jobs. Just look at the pandemic. Our economy will continue to become more automated in the future. So we need to act now to protect the hardworking Americans it's supposed to serve. Thank you.